Hey there, Sunny Solution fans. I wanted to hop on here today and talk to you a little bit about my past experience these few months. So, if you're watching this live, give me some hearts and likes. If you're watching on the replay, do a hashtag replay. So, what I wanted to talk to you about tonight is some people have really struggled, including myself, with clear, calm breathing. So, I don't know if that's your story or not. The other thing is sometimes people they have their favorite go-tos that usually always work. And sometimes things don't always work the way we expect. And so tonight I wanted to talk to you about switching things up, but maybe keeping what you're already doing. So sometimes we have to adjust, and that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. So this year, 2022, I faced some health challenges that I really haven't struggled with. I mean, normally I'm super healthy and I don't really catch any bugs, but I don't know, mid to late January, I didn't feel real well, and I'm not sure, it just was a typical kind of cold stuff. But I got pretty tired, and so I just laid low for a couple weeks. I felt better, and then late February kind of had a repeat, and then I felt better, and then again, late March, kind of the same thing. And then again in mid-April. So I had several rounds of just not feeling that great. Most of it was respiratory for me. And I know as I started to dig in and figure out what was going on, and I started reaching out to, kind of my network to see if they were hearing some of the same things and what others had been doing that helped them, or maybe some of their discoveries, I found that there was a lot of us struggling with that same thing. So we'd get better and then kind of slide back, get better, slide back. And what we were doing didn't always work. And so this last go around in mid-April was a little different for me. I did struggle with a few days of having a high body temperature and some body aches and those kind of things. And then more allergy-like. When it first started, I just thought, oh, it's just spring allergies, and didn't really think too much about it. And had the drip down the back of the throat and just kind of a little congested. But when it really hit, I was unable to sleep at night because I couldn't quit coughing. And obviously, if you're not sleeping, your body can't repair itself. It can't rest. So what do? All the things that I normally do. I love to diffuse breathe and apply breathe on my chest. I was taking my vitamins already, so I was doing all the things. But what I found was that I had to kind of go back in my memory. And so years ago, before I had doTERRA essential oils, I used to use herbs. And so I found this book to show you. This was something I used years and years ago. It's a little herb encyclopedia book. And I have a whole shelf in my library of herbs and homeopathic books. So I don't always tell people, I'll just run out and do this. Do your research, because there's things that you should and shouldn't do with anything. So, but it did remind me back in the day, I used to struggle with allergies about March. I lived in Laramie, and so there was, I don't remember if it was juniper or cedar, something that would bloom in that time period, and I'd always get a sore throat from it. And so I got my little herb book, and I found ground sage in a veggie cap worked really well for me. It kind of helped dry things up. And so I pulled out like some kitchen ground sage for you. Obviously, there's some higher quality supplies of herbs, but just to give you an example, this one has a little shaker bottle on it, but you can actually use ground sage to help with that, and use like a veggie cap, like doTERRA has their veggie caps. But what that prompted me was that clary sage from doTERRA, it can be used internally. So I started putting a drop of that under my tongue. Now, if you don't like the taste of it, obviously use the doTERRA veggie cap. You can put a drop in there and swallow it. You'll notice that on the back side of this, the clary sage has a supplemental fact, so that means it can be used internally. And then the other thing that I was remembering as I was going through, well, what would help me to be able to breathe better? Because what was happening is at night I would cough, during the day no cough. And so even when I slept upright, I still had a cough, and so I wasn't getting the rest I needed. So I needed to switch something up. And several years ago, I had a customer who she was pregnant and couldn't use her breathing medication. She had some kind of a respiratory disease where she used medications to keep her airways open, and she had chosen not to use them during her pregnancy, which a lot of women do, step away from some of their medications just to be on the safe side. But what she found, I had told her about some of the properties of Siberian fir, and she's like, I want to try it. So she put it in her water bottle, and within a few minutes, she came back to me and she's like, wow, I can breathe really well again. And I didn't think a whole lot more about it, but I do know that I've recommended Siberian fir to a lot of people, and it seems to work really good internally. So here's the Siberian fir, and yes, it does have the supplemental facts on the back, so it can be used internally. And so this last go around of me not feeling well, I got both those out. I was using a drop of each under my tongue as needed. So sometimes it was every hour and sometimes it was every couple hours. Obviously you can diffuse both of these, and so I did do some diffusion. I also was using a lot of my other oils. I love copaiba, and so I was actually using some copaiba underneath my tongue, and it will enhance the effects of other essential oils, so it's a great complement to whatever oil you're using. And the copaiba helps with the immune system, digestive, respiratory, and nervous system. So it was very effective with these other two oils, helping me to be able to breathe better and sleep better. So with that, though, I had a few notes here that I want to make sure I remember everything. One big thing is that don't stop doing what you've already been doing that you know usually works, but maybe add a couple things. These were really simple things to add: a drop of clary sage and a drop of Siberian fir. And so the other thing that I wanted to point out to you is that even if you're not a nerd, chemistry does matter. And so I'm a Y girl, and I got to thinking here a couple weeks ago, I'm like, why did those work so well for me this go around? And I knew that I had to look at the chemistry to understand why they worked. And so if you want to hang out and learn just a little bit, I'll try to keep it real simple. But the big thing with doTERRA and why they work consistently is because of our purity standards. So doTERRA has, from where it's sourced at all the way up till it arrives in the bottle at our doorstep, all these multiple testing points. So not only is it contaminant free, but all the other things that go into it, the way we practice growing and harvesting these essential oils, keeps the chemistry profile the same batch after batch after batch. And so that's why these work time and time again, is because of the purity. One of the things I noticed with herbs when I use them is, depending on where I got the herbs from and how old they were, they didn't work the same. Herbs will lose their potency over time, and also can have contaminants in them, anything from bacteria and funguses and those type of things, depending on how the herbs were handled. And doTERRA will test all of that, so we know that they're contaminant free all the way around. So with that, I wanted to point out how I figured out some of the chemistry. So I have, there's a lot of reference books out there. I do like the Modern Essentials book. So in the very back, there's a whole section on chemistry. But then also with each oil, you'll find, I'll show you the Siberian fir. So it will list off the main chemical constituents, and also historical uses, French medicinal uses, other possible uses of that essential oil, some of the safety and the research. So it's a really good, simple resource book. It doesn't have a lot of recipes or that kind of thing. With each oil, you'll have to go to the back to see the recipes, but as far as the oil itself, you can tell that part of it. So when I researched when I researched Siberian fir, a few things that I found. One of the main uses for Siberian fir was bronchitis. And so I wouldn't say that what I had was bronchitis, but it did keep me awake at night. It didn't happen during the day. However, Siberian fir did help keep my breathing calm. So I'm very thankful for that. But why? Why did it keep my breathing calm? So I looked up some of the properties of Siberian fir, and I have them jotted down here. One of the big ones is it helps reduce mucus in the body. And so it's also an expectorant. So that made me think about the kind of the drip that I had down my throat that was tickling my throat. I'm sure that really did help. And then as far as historical uses, it's actually been prized throughout the ages as a medicinal plant, and they used it for respiratory complaints as well as muscular complaints and rheumatic issues. And then the French medicinal use again was bronchitis and other respiratory congestion, as well as some energy level. And I was suspect that the energy was brought up because it helps increase your oxygen level when you're actually able to breathe properly. And then it's also very effective for airborne germs. So if you're diffusing it, it'll help lower that germ profile in your home. And then it's good for bronchial obstruction. Also helps with fevers, colds, oxygenating the cells, sinusitis, those type of things. And there's a whole list of other uses, but that was just what I wanted to point out for the breathing part of it. So chemistry wise, there's a couple of main components of the oil. One of them is called bornyl acetate. I'm not going to give you the structures because it doesn't mean anything to me, and I know it won't mean anything to you. However, because of this part of the chemistry, it actually helps antispasmodic. So what that means is if you imagine that you just keep coughing and coughing, or maybe having a muscle spasm in your back and it keeps going and going, this actually can help disrupt that. So the other thing that it was bornyl acetate has been researched for is that bronchial candida. So actually like a fungal type infection in your lungs. And so that was new to me. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Now, did I have a fungus? I have no idea, I can't say. But I thought that was a cool point of that particular part of the chemistry. And then there's another chemistry component called monoterpenes. And so in the monoterpenes, it can help also with bronchitis. And it's also an expectorant. So I thought, wow, those are kind of some cool properties. So then I opened up clary sage, and I wanted to find out more about clary sage. Well, one of the big things as far as French medicinal use was bronchitis and infections. Historically, it was called clear eyes. There were some monks that used it to help with their eyesight. So it became known as the clear eyes essential oil nowadays, but back then it was an herbal form. But also used for a variety of respiratory support as well as other conditions. Very helpful for throat infections. And so that made me think back to when I used to use the ground sage to help with my sore throat. So kind of funny that, I was able to remember these things and cross them over when I needed them. And they also listed whooping cough for clary sage. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I have to say, I felt like I couldn't breathe at night. Now, it was weird that I didn't have it during the day, but it did settle my throat and my breathing down when I used these at night. So that was kind of a little tidbit on the chemistry and why they worked. Obviously, I'm not a chemist, and you're probably not either, but it is important to understand a little bit of the chemistry and the research because these oils do consistently work. And sometimes we have to switch things up. So if you want to know a little bit more about some of the other things I did, feel free to reach out to me. Or if you know somebody who struggled with the same thing and they might need a little bit of encouragement or help to find something to add to what they're already doing, feel free to share this video or have them message me or call me, and I'll be able to give them a better understanding. So I hope that as we're into that spring season here in North America, that even if you're struggling with those seasonal things, these two oils may help you with that as well. So feel free to try those or message me with some questions about that too. So have a great day, and we will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.